Hello everyone, welcome back to Gardening with the Landscape Connection. My name is Michelle and I am in my backyard today because we are going to talk about shade gardening. So this is like one of my most popular classes that I teach. Every time I offer this class, I have a full house. Whether I'm teaching it at the library, I teach it for the U of I Extension, I teach it here at the Garden Center. So I thought that I would turn my class into a video. So the name of this video is Shade Gardening Beyond Hostas. What can I plant in the shade besides a hosta? I love hostas, don't get me wrong. I think they're great. I have lots of them, but I don't want just hostas. I want to be able to plant something else. Now, I know those of you that live in really super dry climates, you're like, we just want to grow hostas because in the spring they're glorious, and by the time you hit midsummer, they're probably so tattered from the dry and the wind and everything else you guys get that you can't grow them. But here in the Midwest and in the South, hostas are a staple of the shade gardening. But it's one of the number one questions I get asked. What else can I plant besides a hosta? So if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad that you joined us. You're here because you want to learn about gardening, and that's what my station is all about. From annuals, perennials, herbs, vegetables, landscaping, putting in new beds, whatever it is you want to learn, we're going to be talking about those things through the whole season and into however long we decide to keep going with this. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I had to adjust my pillow that I'm sitting on because I'm sitting on this rock ledge wall and it's not very comfortable. Okay, so let's get right into it and let's talk about things that you can grow in the shade. Now, there are different kinds of shade. There's wet shade, dry shade, part shade. There's high shade. There's filtered shade. There's shade that's created from a building or something else that's in your way. What we're going to talk about today are things that grow in full shade. I'm not even going to get into the plants that are part shade, part sun, or whatever. It's just we're going to talk about these grow in the shade. And this way, we don't confuse them with things that will grow in part shade or sun or anything else like that. So if you're looking for that, those are the plants I'm going to talk about. But before we talk about plants, let's just talk a little bit real quickly about 3 tips to do if you're gardening in the shade that will maybe help you be a little more successful. Number 1, you need airflow. So even if you see things all crowded together in a shade garden, in a Lush magazine, or on the internet, the reality is they need airflow because there's not a lot of movement in the shade. There's not a lot of sun hitting it to dry your foliage. So you want to make sure that things have enough room to grow. So when you're planting, leave space for them to get full size. It's okay if they're touching, but you don't want them all on top of each other because you're going to have problems. I guarantee it. If you're in an area that has any kind of humidity whatsoever, you're going to have problems with just bugs, powdery mildew, fungal diseases, just all kinds of things. So make sure they have airflow. 2, it is a really good idea to clean up your shade area and cut your perennials back in the fall. Don't create an area for animals and bugs and little voles and just all those diseases or insects or, funguses to harbor in the foliage over the winter. Don't create those natural nests for them, so to speak. Clean that all up and make sure that you are taking all of the debris and throwing it away in your compost pile or bagging it up or however you have to dispose of your lawn waste. Make sure you're doing that. And 3, the biggest thing with shade is make sure that you're planting the right kind of shade plant for the right kind of shade. If you have dry shade, you're not going to be able to plant some of the ones that I talk about that want water all the time, unless you're going to go out there all the time and water, or you're going to create some kind of drip system to water. Okay, it's better to water in the morning and it's better to water deep and less often than it is to water every day or overhead, especially in the shade. You never want to put your plants to bed wet because they don't have time to dry. So those would be kind of my 3 tips with gardening in the shade because I think it's a little bit more challenging. And I think you can do some no maintenance stuff, but if you want to plant things that aren't a hosta, some of these need a little bit more love, so to speak, than maybe a hosta does. So let's jump right into it. The first group that I'm going to talk about are going to be those ones that grow in the shade that want wet shade. So they want to be watered a lot and they want to kind of grow in this wet area. And there's only 3 that I'm going to talk about that really want those conditions. But if you have that condition going on, these are fabulous. So the first one I'm going to talk about is an astilbe. So this is an astilbe here. They are absolutely gorgeous. They have different sizes, different colors, even the leaf color. I'm going to pause for just a second. Okay, I picked Saturday to do this video because there's less trucks out on the road in front of me. But then one of my guys is working on one of our big dump trucks and he was test driving it, so I had to pause the camera. So back to astilbe. Astilbe want to be in wet environments. They like it when it's wet. And what's really cool is they come in a lot of different colors. Even the leaf color, you can find purple colored leaves or darker colored leaves, and they come in red, pink, white, peach, purple, all different heights too, from mini ones to tall ones, all kinds of astilbes out there. So you can really pick the one that you love if you want to plant these. These are absolutely gorgeous in drifts. Most of them, so there's like a middle ground of the standard ones are going to get probably 24 to 32 inches tall, and then they're probably going to get 18 to 20 inches wide. But what I love about them is when they get their flowers on them, when the flowers are done, they still look good on the plant after they're done with their flush of color. So I leave mine on. I do have 3 astilbes, and I struggle with them because they're not in a boggy area, and if I don't remember to water them, they have a tendency to crisp up, and it's my like astilbe shame. By the middle of the summer, I'm cutting them back because it's like, okay, guys don't look good. But in a boggy area, oh, these are great in the shade. Now, the next one that you can grow in the shade, this is kind of a ground cover. So I'm sure you've heard of the heucherellas. That's a cross between a tiarella and a coral bell. Well, this is the tiarella. This one is called Elizabeth Oliver, and it is a foam flower. They get these white flowers on them right here, all over them, and they slowly spread across the ground with a rhizome. And if they're really happy, they can spread like crazy. So if you're looking for a ground cover that's a little bit higher than like a normal ground cover, these are absolutely gorgeous. They pair well with the astilbes. They are going to grow in zones 4 through 9, and they are going to bloom from April to May, 12 to 15 inches high. You want to space them about 12 inches apart, and they've got these beautiful lobed leaves on them with those dark maroon centers. Absolutely gorgeous. And then these little like bottle brush looking flowers on the top. And so this is considered a ground cover, but in a boggy, wet area, these will grow really well. Now, you could put these in the front of a border or create an area with these and maybe put a soaker hose through there or a drip line to give them the water that they need. But I don't know that I would try to grow these without doing something like that. So tiarella. All right. Then the next one that you can grow in a wet, boggy area or wet, shady area will be your ferns. Now, ferns also spread through a spore along the ground. This is a cinnamon fern, and there's a lot of different ferns. I like the cinnamon fern because it uncurls, and it's like a copper red when it unfurls, and then it matures to a bronze and then to a green. So it kind of goes through this color change as it's maturing. And I love the cinnamon colored bark, or not bark, cinnamon colored stem that it has. These are going to grow 18 to 30 inches tall, 12 to 16 inches wide. Now, there's a lot of different ferns out there. There's lady ferns, ostrich ferns, Japanese painted ferns. I like this one here. This one has got a very attractive color. But again, if they're really happy, they can really spread. So you want to be careful with anything that's a water lover because they can spread if they say on the tag that they're kind of a ground cover thing. And most of them will say on the tag, like right here, it says, see, it says it right there. It says ground cover, okay? So these are also deer resistant. So the deer won't eat your ferns. And let's check the foam flower. Doesn't say anything about that on here. So those are my 3 water-loving plants. So let's move on to other shade plants that you can grow in the shade that are beautiful as well. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a Lenten rose. And so this is out of the Frost Kiss series. I like the Frost Kiss series because the flowers grow a little more upright. Some of the flowers in some of the other series, like the Wedding series, they grow more down. I like to see the flowers, so I like the upward flowers. Now, Lenten rose are going to start growing when it's still cold outside. And so these need 4 to 6 hours of light a day. They're going to grow in full shade. The thing about it is, though, you can get away with putting them underneath a tree because when these are creating their flowers and their leaves and everything else, there's no leaves on the trees. So therefore, it's going to get the sun that it needs that way. I got to Okay, now the other thing is this one here is going to get 18 inches tall. It's going to have a nice mounded habit on it, and it's going to grow 5 through 9 is the zone. And you want the soil to dry out in between waterings. The nice thing about Lenten Rose too is they can handle the cold, they can handle the snow on them, and they're just going to keep on going. Now, I don't cut my Lenten Rose back. I just leave mine alone. I put a little bit of mulch around the base of it, and then in the spring, when I start to see them pop up, I just pull the dead foliage off. Now, the one thing that I do, because they can get expensive, Lenten Rose can run, I don't know, I sell them $24.99 to $39.99, depending on how big they are and which series they are. So if you're going to invest in these and you're going to plant these, put them someplace where you can see them, out a window or up a walkway that you use, you know, in April or February or, you know, early March or through March, so that you see them. Don't plant them in the corner of your backyard where you're never going to see them, because how many of you go out to the corner of your backyard in March when it's cold? So I just think that you should plant them where you can see them, because they're absolutely gorgeous. But here you go, Lenten Rose. Okay, the next ones we're going to talk about, these are Goat's Beard. This one is called Chantilly Lace. It's a proven winners cultivar. It's a goat's beard. It's going to grow in shade. And again, this one is going to be zone 3 through 7. It's going to be medium height, 30 to 32 inches high. And they're going to get probably 36 to 42 inches wide. So it gets pretty wide. And then it's going to get its blooms on it. It gets these little white flowers. Actually, maybe the tag will be easier to show you. It gets these little white flowers on it. And it kind of reminds me of a stilby, except it doesn't have to have as much water as a stilby. And I think that the foliage on them is just as pretty, especially this one. Look at that. Look at that pretty variegated foliage, that light green with the dark veining in there. So there's another one that you can do too. And this one is a bigger one. And this one's also going to get the big plumes on it like that. And this one is going to grow in zones 3 through 9. It's going to get 4 to 5 feet tall. I planted this one time at the base of a maple tree at my other house, and it did pretty good there. Now, it didn't get 5 feet tall because I think it was competing with the maple tree for some of the water. I did have to do some supplemental watering with it, but it grew pretty good. And I had 4 of them around the base of the tree, and it got its flowers and it grew, and I loved it. I thought it was really nice. Not a lot of people know to grow goat's beard, but it is a nice, tall background, this one here, that you can grow in your shade garden. So I like that about there. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is Lady's Mantle. Lady's Mantle is this tried and true. They've been around a super long time. They are going to grow in the shade, and they're going to get 12 to 18 inches high. You're going to space them about 2 feet apart. They get these beautiful yellow flowers on them in the spring. And what I find with mine here in zone 5 is after the flowers are done and then they're kind of left there and they're brown, what I do is I take my shears and I cut the whole plant in half. And then I let it do another flush of foliage, and then they look good all the way till the end of the year. And I find when I don't do that, by the time I hit the middle of August, they're starting to look kind of ratty. So I started doing that a couple years ago, and it was like, oh, I just love that. I love that they look good the whole rest of the year. The other thing is when it gets wet, the foliage, it looks like little dewdrops, and they like form little circles, and they look like they're glistening. It's just cool when there's water on the top of them. And so these will grow in zone 3 through 7. So that means it can handle up to minus 40. That's pretty hardy. So Lady's Mantle is another one for your shade. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is Lungwort. Okay, so there's a lot of different ones out there. I love them. I love the splotched leaf on here. There's all different ones. Some of them have round leaves. Some of them have elongated leaves. But they all have a bonus flower, because you're not growing plants in the shade for flowers. Most of them are small, insignificant, and you got to plant a lot of them to have impact. This one here, look how little those are. But see, some of them are blue, and look, some of them are pink. And so I love the foliage. When this plant is done, I will go through and I will cut down to the next set of leaves. I will cut the stem off. So like down here, I'll cut that off, and then I'll be left with this beautiful plant. Now these are going to grow 12 to 14 inches high, and they're going to get about 18 inches around. I've seen them get bigger though, and there are different cultivars. This one is called Twinkle Toes. There's Mrs. Moon. There's one called Samurai where it's got more of a silver leaf than a splotched leaf. There's Bertram Anderson. So there's a lot of different ones out there. And what I recommend, if you love the look of this plant, go find one that you like and plant one. Okay? The flowers are a bonus again. So zones 3 through 9. So again, oh my God, minus 40 degrees in the winter. And it'll grow in the shade. These pair up well with Japanese anemones, bleeding hearts. Nice. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. I just love that. All right. The next one we're going to talk about is Jacob's Ladder. This first one I'm going to show you. Isn't that just the sweetest thing ever? Look at that. Look at that beautiful variegated foliage. And look at, can you see the pink tips on the leaves over here? See, look how there's like little pink tips on the newer leaves. I just think this is so beautiful. And then look at those blue lavender flowers. This one is called Stairway to Heaven. It's a Jacob's Ladder. It's going to get 12 to 15 inches. And it's going to want moist but well-drained soil. And this is the hardiest of the variegated ones that you can buy. So there's other ones out there, but I have found that this one is hardier than any other one that I've seen. It's really great in the front of the border if you're looking for something to brighten up your shady area. It's going to grow in zones 4 through 8. It doesn't grow great in heavy clay soil, but it does grow great on the edge of the woods where you've got that nice loamy soil that's broke down from all the forest decay falling. They do great in that. So Jacob's Ladder, isn't that great? I just love that plant. Look at those beautiful flowers. Okay. Now another Jacob's Ladder. This one is from Proven Winners, and this one's called Heaven Sent. Now this is a bigger Jacob's Ladder, and this one is going to get, check this out. I'll start at the bottom here. Okay, so here's my pot, and here's my plant. Look at this. Ooh, all the way down. Check out those flowers. Aren't those gorgeous? Now this is a little bit darker purple, and then it's got the little, I guess you call them the stamens in the center. They're yellow. Isn't that cool? But I love the structure of this plant too. I like the way it looks. So that's what I mean when I say you're looking for some architectural differences in your plantings. I can just imagine a drift of these in the back of a border, because even when the flowers are done, just the beautiful structure of this plant is totally awesome. So this one here is going to grow 18 to 24 inches high. It's going to get 15 to 18 inches wide. It's going to be good in zones 3 through 7. I'm going to pause. Okay, the other thing, these are a fragrant flower. They have a nice, light, delicate smell to them, and they have these loose clusters of flowers on the top. These pair well with hostas. I mean, hostas are great to pair with this. The hostas are kind of below it, and these are peeking up through it. And when these are getting bigger and blooming, that's when your hostas are starting to emerge, so they're still in that kind of upright position. They aren't all tattered or eaten yet, so they look really good together. So, gotta love that. Let me do that again. Look at this. Oh, look at that. That's so gorgeous. I love that. All right. We'll put that one right there. Okay. Oh, let me put its tag back in there so I don't lose it. All right. The next one I'm going to talk about, these are going to be grasses. And we're going to talk about the Hakonakloa, Japanese forest grass. They will not grow in heavy clay, unfortunately. They want rich soil. So if you can create like a raised bed or raise an area up in your bed, and sometimes you can create that by maybe putting some stacked stone or some boulders and then backfilling behind it with compost, then you can plant one of these in there. That's what I did over in this garden. I just kind of did some stacked stones, and then I backfilled behind it with compost. And that way I was able to have these. So this one is called Areola, and it's got this beautiful variegated foliage. And what's really cool is this foliage will turn like a pinkish red in the autumn. That's kind of cool, huh? These have a weeping habit to them. They aren't a spreading grass. It's a clump grass. They're going to get 12 to 18 inches high, and they're going to get probably 16 inches wide, and they are deer resistant. The deer won't eat them. They're going to bloom August through October. And I tell you, if you plant them in mass, it's the best grass. If you've got good drainage for them, they won't sit in wet water. But look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? They have another one too. Grows the same way. I think the size is about the same too. Yep, this about the same. But this one is called All Gold. Talk about some bright, beautiful gold chartreuse in the shade. Put that next to a blue hosta and watch it pop. Yeah. see more things that you can plant. All right, this last grass I'm going to show you is a northern sea oat. Now this one will grow in the shade as well. It's deer resistant. I have personally never grown this, but it is one of the ones that will grow in the shade because one of it's a native ornamental here in Illinois, and it's valued especially for its ability to grow in the shade. That's what the tag says. Flat flower spikes gradually arch above bamboo-like green foliage in the summer. See, so that's what it looks like. Late leaves and flowers turn tan to give an attractive winter interest. Adds 3 seasons interest to perennial borders. How nice is that? Zone 3 through 8. 2 to 6 feet tall, spaced 18 to 30 inches apart. It is deer resistant. How cool was that? And you know what? I don't know that I, real fast, if the other ones I looked to see if they were deer resistant. I don't know if they said. I have this one company that tells you everything about them. Okay, now let's talk about ground cover, because we do have some hard to grow in areas like under maple trees, those ones where the roots are above the surface, and we always want to cover them up, but that's where the roots want to be. They want to be up there, and they can get really thick and big, and it's hard to plant under. It's hard to get grass to grow under. So sometimes the solution is ground cover. And so up here in zone 5, I'm just going to show you some of the ground covers that we can use. And this is English ivy, and this one is called Glacier. It's got this white edge on it right here. And it also is one, as you can see here, it's got a little tendril, so it can creep and grow as well. So this English ivy is going to grow up to 50 feet. When you first put them in, and I recommend if you're ever going to do a ground cover that you get plugs. All right, these are going to grow in zone 5 through 10. So these can really spread and they can handle the competition. So if you're going to do it with little plugs like this. Don't go buy big plants. A lot of times if you go to a garden center, if somebody comes into our store and says, I want some ground cover, I always recommend the plugs, and I'll order as many as they need just for them. I might not carry 100 plugs in my store, but I can get 100 plugs for somebody if they needed it. So this one's called Glacier, and as you can see here, this one's got the white edge on it. And then there's another one. Let me grab it. This one here is called Goldchild, and it's just got a gold edge on it. Okay, so this can climb up brick and attach itself though, so be careful with that. And again, these, I don't know if I said it, these are zone 5 through 10. Okay, and you want to water them 2 to 3 times a week until they're good and established. You don't cut them back in the winter, you just let them go. Now, the one I would say downside to any kind of ground cover is the leaves that get trapped in there, and then you got to get your blower and kind of, you know, and push those leaves out so that you don't totally destroy your plants. Now here's another one. I actually have this one growing here. This is Lamium. It's not as crazy invasive as some of the others. This one is actually called Pink Pewter, and it's going to grow 4 to 8 inches high. If you're going to do plugs, you would space them like 12 inches apart to get your ground cover fill in about 2 years. And then these are vigorous spreading plants that are easy to grow and very rewarding. Now this one, if I want to pull it out, it's got a pretty shallow root system. Whereas like the ivy, pachysandra, some of those other ones, woo, they got some serious root systems. And so you'll have a hard time getting them out. So make sure if you want ground cover, you really want ground cover. They're not fussy about soil type. They prefer a location with good drainage, but they don't necessarily want to sit in standing water. And they get little bitty flowers all over the top of them in the spring. These are absolutely gorgeous. And these are going to be zone, does it say? Tell me, does it say? Yes, 4 to 8, zone 4 to 8. Okay, so that is, and there's other lamiums. This is just one. Some people call it, I think, Dead Nancy or something like that. I don't know if it's Dead Nancy. Okay, another ground cover is your vinca, okay, or your myrtle, or some people, just the ground cover, it looks like this. And it is vinca minor or myrtle, and it's going to grow in zone 4 through 9. Water weekly during dry spells. It grows 6 to 8 inches. It will spread very vigorously. This one will grow in sun or shade, and it gets blue flowers on it in the spring. Can you see those? Okay. And it's very nice in difficult situations. It can actually handle the competition and fill in and space them about 12 inches apart. So there you go. Vinca. Okay. And then the last one I have is Sweet William. All right, this is Sweet William. It will take a little bit of foot traffic. It gets these little bitty white flowers all over it. It has a grassy scented foliage and is topped with a a cluster of fragrant white flowers. Blooms appear in late spring and early summer, an excellent spreading ground cover for shady borders or woodland gardens. Leaves are sometimes used to flavor wines and liqueurs. How about that? Make yourself some, throw some sprigs in your drink. 12 to 18 inches high, spaced 12 inches apart. And these are zone, come on baby, tell me. It does not say. I'm sorry, I don't know the zone. I'll put it in the notes in the description. I don't know. It doesn't say. Okay, but sweet woodruff. I know we can grow them here in zone 5. So there's also Pachysandra, and I didn't bring any of that over because my Pachysandra actually got bought out yesterday, and I didn't have any left until I ordered some more in. So Pachysandra is another one that you can grow underneath a maple. It's really thick, really dense. Again, you're going to probably do 8 to 12 inch centers if you're trying to get it to spread and go all over. And then there's a Juga. A Juga is the last one that will grow in the shade. Some of these you have to be careful that you have a defined edge and that it doesn't creep out into your lawn, because like any ground cover, if it's really happy, it can take off and it can just go everywhere. So just a word of caution with ground covers. So that's all I've got, but I am going to talk about one hosta. I can't leave without not talking about just one hosta, and I'm going to talk about the hosta of the year for proven winners, which is the Empress Woo. Look at this. This is in the pot, and look how big that leaf is. Now, one of the things with hostas, if you want them to get really big, they need a lot of water. So you can get them and you can grow them and you can just let them do their thing in the garden. But if you ever want this thing to get as big as they say it's going to get, which is 3 to 4 feet tall. 3 to 4 feet tall. That is tall. And that can get 60. That's 5 feet wide. You're never going to do that without supplemental watering. But you can absolutely grow them that year. It might take you 5 years to get it that big because every year they're going to come back and be a little bit bigger. But you can definitely make that happen. Now, I love hostas. And even though this wasn't about hostas, I still love them. I love variegated ones, blue ones, green ones. I just like them. But I like other things too. And a lot of these things, we're going to take a little tour in our next video of my garden. So you can kind of check that out. And we'll be doing all different kinds of things in the garden this summer so that you can learn just some, if you're a beginner, some basic skills and what to do. But I love this hosta. I am going to plant one. So I am Michelle. That's all I have for now. I hope that you enjoyed our video. Please subscribe down below if you haven't already. Share with your friends so that they can learn about gardening too. And stay tuned for our next video. Now we are putting them out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm hoping to always post between 6 and 7. I apologize always if I'm a little bit late. Normally it's because I got pulled into the store and just got busy. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for our next video. Keep on gardening and have a great day. Bye now.